Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another great week. Sarah Maslowski with KeyPoint Homes Group joining you for another live stream answering all your questions about moving to Georgia, the real estate market, buying a house, selling a house, whatever questions you have. We are here to answer it today. I hope things are going well for you wherever you are. And please let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I'd love to know where you're joining us from this evening. And I'm especially happy because, one, the weather is warming up here in Georgia. I've talked a lot about the weather here recently on the live streams, but it's been unusually cold. So we've had several clients visiting from out of town or out of state actually this week. And a common question is, how cold does it usually get here? And is this normal, or is this the coldest that it gets? And so that's funny to me because what is freezing to me is probably very warm to you from wherever you're watching if you came to visit here. So we had a couple of days where the high was in the mid 40s. That was pretty cold for me. It's also been dreary and raining, which is a little bit unusual for our winter. I remember we moved up here from South Georgia to North Georgia about 8 years ago, and we moved right around this time period. So we moved in December. And I remember thinking, like, where in the world have we moved to? It's so rainy and it's so gray and it's just kind of yucky looking outside. It was like that for like a good 4 to 5 weeks. And I feel like we're going through that again. So I had a conversation with a client just saying, yeah, this weather's a little bit unusual. It feels like we are living in the Pacific Northwest, Seattle area, which I'm sure maybe if someone's watching from that area, you can tell me if that's how it really is where you live, or if that's just a myth or something we see on TV. But yeah, definitely very cold and dreary. We've got Carrie from New York City. Thank you for joining us from New York. Got some more coming up for you about New York on the live stream today. We have Yvonne from Minnesota. Thank you for joining us. Oh, I bet it's cold where you're at, Yvonne. So definitely a Georgia winter will be a walk in the park for you. So yeah, so today it's been sunny. The weather's been warmer. It's so nice to feel the sunshine. I don't know if you've ever heard of seasonal depression. That's actually, I think, a real thing. Like when you're not getting the sunshine that you're used to, I've definitely been feeling that. Like I need the sunshine. So I'm happy that we had some great sunny weather today. And Yvonne said, yes, it is very cold. So I guess I would not deal well in a space or area that had to deal with like snow. Could not deal with snow. Although when we get it here, it's like very exciting, and it's a once in a year event here. So seeing snow is good once a year, but I could not live in an area where you have to deal with it day in and day out. So thank you for joining us on the live stream today. Want to know where you're watching from, and of course, go ahead and start popping your questions down in the comments. But I thought today we're going to dive into why are people moving to Georgia? And so Georgia is one of the top states where people are relocating to, and we're going to dive into that. But before we get there, I thought we would kind of touch a little bit on what is happening in the real estate market. So every single week, I like to give you an update on kind of what's happening, what's changed, and what we're seeing in the market. And whenever I was out showing houses this weekend with clients, one of the surprising things to me was that every single house that we went to, there was either someone coming or going in order to get into the house. So that's a good thing. Like there's buyers were out looking for houses this past weekend. And so when I came across this statistic, it was not surprising to me at all. So this came from the website Bigger Pockets, which if you are thinking about investing in real estate, this is a great website to follow. They give fantastic investor tips and kind of teach you the ins and outs of buying investment properties and how to go about using real estate as an investment tool. But they shared this on their social media page that there was a almost 28% jump in mortgage applications during the week of January 13th. And that was the steepest recorded increase in applications since the onset of home buying boom in 2020. So this tracked very well with what I actually saw boots on the ground with clients this past weekend. There were way more buyers that were out with other agents looking at houses where, typically you show up to a house and you just go right in. Well, in this scenario, we were waiting for other clients to come out with their agent, waiting for us to go in. And then also usually when we came out, there was another agent ready to go in with their client. So a lot of buyers were out. And the reason for this uptick in mortgage applications was that great news, mortgage rates are continually to slowly come back down. And so mortgage interest rates reached a peak kind of in September, mid sevens. That's a drastic increase from how they were, a year ago, or heck, even just 4 months ago from September. It was almost double the mortgage rate. And so that kind of cut your buying rate in half if you wanted to keep your mortgage payment the same. So, I'm sure if you're a buyer right now or during that time period back in the fall of last year, you're like, crap, I don't know what's going on in the real estate market. Interest rates are jumping up. I keep seeing all these headlines that the real estate market is crashing. I'm just going to hold off on the sidelines here and kind of wait and see what happens. Well, we've seen what happened, and that is that they're starting to get inflation under control, right? And so we are seeing those mortgage interest rates continue to keep coming back down. So the good thing is that they are in the low sixes, high fives if you're getting an FHA loan. And so that makes a drastic difference in your buying power as a buyer. And so another blog had some great insights from economists. They were saying that the mortgage rates are now at their lowest since September of 2022. They're about a percentage point below the peak mortgage rate from last fall. And that as we enter this spring buying season, they're expecting that it's going to help make homes more affordable, right? So that's a little bit of kind of like a given. Lower interest rates make things more affordable. And then we had this Moody's economist who said that we expect the labor market to remain robust, wages to continue to rise, maybe not at the pace that they did during the pandemic, but that will open up some opportunity for folks to enter home ownership as interest rates stabilize a little bit. So this is a very true thing that we are seeing in the market. Also right now, buyers still have the ability to negotiate with sellers to get the seller to cover some of these closing costs. And we can use some of those closing costs to buy down your interest rate. So even though interest rates have come down to 6%, you can use some of those closing costs to buy down the interest rate to a permanent 5% or even into the fours. So that is definitely something that we are able to negotiate on behalf of our clients, and something that should encourage you if you are in the market and thinking about buying a house. I will say that based on the demand that we've had from buyers here over the past couple of weeks and what's showing up in mortgage applications, if you're thinking about buying a house, and if you have the flexibility of doing that now versus later, I definitely would encourage you to go ahead and do that now, because it's only the competition for homes is only going to increase as we get throughout the year and as we get into this spring selling season. If you didn't get a chance to catch my live stream last week, I had John Birchfield, one of my great local lenders, on, and really kind of interviewing him and picking his brain. And he was echoing a lot of these same things of the points that I'm making right now. So if you didn't get a chance to watch that, make sure you go back and watch that video. So again, thank you for joining us on the live stream this evening. If you have any questions about the Georgia housing market or the housing market in general, make sure you go ahead and ask those questions, and we will make sure that they get answered. And if you haven't already liked and subscribed to my channel, make sure you do that. I've got a goal to reach 5,000 subscribers within the next couple of weeks. So we'll see if we can make that happen. But we definitely appreciate you joining me here tonight. So let's get back into it. So the headline of this video was, why is everyone moving to Georgia? So the National Association of Realtors named Atlanta as one of the best cities to buy a home in 2023. In fact, they actually made it the best city to buy a home in 2023. Why is that? So obviously there's a lot of people moving to the Atlanta market, and the Atlanta market has held very, very strong comparatively to the rest of the country. So if you look at the West Coast buyers market out there, home prices have had a steady decline out there. But yet, if you look at the Atlanta market, although we've decreased slightly, there's been less transactions here in the Atlanta market than there were last year. But of course, last year was a kind of still in that pandemic housing boom. The Atlanta market is holding very, very strong. And so if you dig into this report from the National Association of Realtors, they go on to say that basically it's because of the economy that we have here in the metro Atlanta area. We have a very, very strong, robust jobs market here in the Atlanta area, a really relatively stable housing market as well, which is why Atlanta is one of the markets that makes this a really great city to buy in 2023. You've got Raleigh and Dallas, and then the Fayetteville area of Arkansas, and then Greenville, Anderson area of South Carolina as well, named as one of the top 5 markets in 2023 to watch. So I thought this was very interesting. So this was a list put out by the National Association of Realtors outlining the top places that people moved to in 2022. So the states that had the most amount of population gain or change from 2021 to 2022. And you'll see there that Georgia was the number 6th state in the United States for population growth and for that domestic net migration. So taking out the people that moved out, the people that moved in, here's what we gained. And you'll see there, let me zoom in on my eyes here, 81,000 new residents to the state of Georgia. And luckily, I was able to help some of y'all find some houses right here in the metro Atlanta area. So we got Florida, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. And that's not surprising to me because these are states where housing is still relatively pretty affordable. Although Florida is a little bit surprising to me. I don't understand why Florida has ranked the top of that list. I'll show you a website that really digs into this data. In the Miami area had a 50% increase for residents. But now that I'm saying this out loud, I wonder if that's more snowbirds that were making Florida their permanent residence. That's interesting to me, though, because we get a lot of clients that are leaving Florida to come to Georgia. So it's interesting to me. So if you're watching from Florida, and go ahead and leave a comment. Tell me, like, why do you think people are seeking out Florida, especially maybe that Miami area? If you have any insight, I would love to know. So let's see here. Let's answer this question from Anthony. Are you seeing activity from iBuyers given this report, or are they still trying to unload their existing inventory? Open Door. Yes. Open Door, they're still trying to sell their existing inventory. So you'll see steady price decreases for Open Door properties. And this is a good talking point because when we're talking about Open Door, this is always something that you need to pay extra close attention to if you are not working with me as your real estate agent and your real estate agent has not given you a warning about Open Door properties. Here's your warning and here's your sign that maybe you might need a different real estate agent. So Open Door is an iBuyer and they're in a lot of metro areas. And Atlanta is one of the markets that they bought homes. Sometimes you can find a house that's a decent house from Open Door. A lot of times it's what we like to use the phrase here in Georgia as lipstick on a pig. So you're really just kind of going in there and throwing up some fresh paint, putting out some new carpet, and kind of like hiding some defects or painting over some defects and calling it a day. So you really need to make sure that you have a really good home inspection whenever you are considering purchasing an Open Door home, because there are typically a lot of issues that they have not fixed. But there is an opportunity right now in the metro Atlanta area to buy an Open Door property. We've seen them become a little bit more negotiable than what they have been in the past. One thing that we have seen is we've seen a slowdown in the amount of properties that they're buying. So back in the pandemic, they were really aggressively going after properties in the metro Atlanta area. Y'all, we had 30% of the homes that were bought in the metro Atlanta area over the past 2 years were bought by investors. A lot of these investors were companies like Open Door or big hedge fund companies that had a lot of money to dump into the rental market. And so they were buying up these homes and turning them into rentals. Or if you're like Open Door, they're buying these houses and then turning around and trying to sell them for a profit. They're not profitable on any of these homes right now. Maybe occasionally they're getting lucky. But if you go back 6 months ago, you can see headlines where it was disclosed that they're losing a ton of money. In fact, Zillow used to buy houses in the metro Atlanta area, and they shut down that operation last year because they were losing a ton of money. Now, they have a ton of money to lose, but they were losing a ton of money. So the one slowdown that we're seeing, Anthony, is that Open Door is not aggressively purchasing inventory right now like they used to. They're kind of investor calls and things like that they're putting out right now are just kind of saying that their strategy is that they want to wait this spring selling season out to see what happens in the market and kind of offload some of this current inventory that they have right now. David, which county in Georgia has home tax exemption for retirees? Oh, I love this question. So one of the reasons why we're seeing so many people relocate to Georgia is because of our low property taxes. So in the metro Atlanta area, for a good rule of thumb, you can estimate that your annual property taxes are going to be about 1% of your purchase price. Occasionally, you're going to find some counties, really like when you get like into the city of Atlanta, where that is going to be a little bit more. The further out you go from metro Atlanta, you can usually estimate a little bit lower than that 1%. So Forsyth County, which is where Cumming is located, they're at about a 0.83% tax rate. So for a lot of clients that we work with, this is a drastic savings already for property taxes. They're just thrilled with this property tax rate that we have here in Georgia. Now, another great thing is that almost all counties in Georgia are going to have some sort of special tax incentive rate for retirees. Typically, you're going to find that tax break at age 62 or age 65, and only one person in the household that's on the title needs to qualify at that age. So if your older spouse, you have a younger spouse, that older spouse can go ahead and claim that senior tax rate exemption. And what that's going to save on your property tax bill is the school portion of your property tax bill. Here in Georgia and in all the counties, typically your school taxes are the biggest chunk of money that your property taxes are going to. So some counties, the amount of discount that they give you on that school property tax bill is a lot different than other counties. But typically, once you apply that tax savings, you are looking at about a 30 to 40% break on your total tax bill. So it is going to save you a lot of money. When you're 62, typically they kind of like step that up in terms of the actual tax break that you get. So you're only able to exempt a certain portion when you're 62, but you get the full benefit when you're 65. Now, some counties will also kind of give income exemptions for seniors. So you're able to qualify for a larger portion of your property taxes to be exempt if you have an income that's at a certain level or less. So there are income limits to how much of a discount you can get, but all seniors in most all counties can qualify for a good portion of your school property taxes to be reduced. So it's going to save you a ton of money. This is also something to keep in mind that if you're looking at Zillow and you're looking at a great house here in Georgia and you're looking at the property taxes and you say, wow, that is really, really cheap property taxes in comparison to, let's say, maybe another house that you've seen in the same town. Typically, it's because the person that owns that house already has that senior tax exemption already applied. So the cool thing is that whenever you buy the house from that person during that year, even if you're not a senior, that property tax rate has already been set for this year. So let's say that we go out house hunting, you find a house that has a senior living in it that gets that property tax exemption. For the year of 2023, when you buy the house, you get to take advantage and pay that senior tax exemption rate. This happened to us whenever we bought our house. We bought it from a senior. And so for that first year, our property taxes were really low. We knew, though, that it was going to go back up to the normal rate the next year. And of course it did, and it will. But that's just something to know. So don't get lured in by that super low tax rate if you're not going to be able to qualify and keep that senior tax exemption. Eddie joining us. I have to give Christina a shout out for me. So Eddie's wife, Christina Smallhorn, has a fantastic channel, and her channel is all about making real estate affordable, and she gives great insight into the real estate market. Eddie, you'll have to drop the name of her channel. It's escaping me. But if you search Christina Smallhorn on here, you'll find her fantastic channel, and she puts out 2 videos a week, and she is fantastic. Jerry says that his uncle has moved from Georgia to Poland and live with us, and Poland is more cheaper. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't have any experience with living in another country. So maybe you're talking about, hopefully, Georgia, the state of Georgia, not the country of Georgia. Let's see here. Spencer, I'm waiting to hear back from a company down there in Georgia. However, kind of nervous about buying a house there due to higher cost of houses in northern Georgia. Yeah, I can get that. So depending upon where you're coming from in the country, you can find that maybe the houses here might be more expensive than where you're coming from. I will say, though, go back and kind of look at the historic data of house prices here. You're going to find that typically it's a really good investment, and we are in a very strong growth economy that is likely going to be a very, very good investment for you. Hopefully that job that you're moving here for is going to help offset a little bit of that more expensive housing cost with a higher wage for you. But yeah, that's definitely something to consider, because if you're thinking about taking a job in an area where that wage growth is not going to account for the higher cost of living, then perhaps that's essentially not really a better promotion, but a demotion. We've been in that exact same spot. We used to move quite a bit for my husband's job. And sometimes there are opportunities that we got to go to other places, but we looked at it and looked at the housing there, and we were like, dang, that's going to eat up all of kind of like the benefits of moving there. So really, really great question. Thank y'all for joining me on this. And so if you have a question about moving to Georgia, don't forget to ask that in the comments. We're answering that as we go through this. And so the video today is all about, like, why are people coming to Georgia? And so we mentioned that Georgia was the number 6 state where people were relocating to in the United States, but I found this really, really interesting. So this is the same data that was shared by the National Association of Realtors. They did a study in 2022, and this was where people are moving away from. So I'm curious to see, if you're watching me tonight, if you are watching from any of these areas. For sure, we have seen a lot of clients that we've personally helped from California and New York and New Jersey. That's probably one of the top 3 areas that we get. I would also say, surprisingly, we get a lot of clients from Florida. And mostly the people that are leaving Florida is they're complaining about the property taxes and the weather. They're sick of the hurricanes, and they're sick of just the heat and the humidity, and they want to be in an area with 4 seasons. So if you're watching this, I would love to know, are you currently in any of these areas? And gosh, look, 343,000 people moving away from California. That is a lot of people, for sure. So let's jump back here to your questions. Oh, we got Jacina, who is from Massachusetts. You're on the list there, right? And it is very expensive. Yeah, so we talked a little bit earlier just now about property taxes, and that is one of the biggest reasons that we see people kind of mention as one of either the benefits that they found from moving here, or like a side benefit that they've seen from moving here. We've got Robert Davis from Pennsylvania. You're up there on the list as well. Y'all lost 40,000 people. Hopefully, if y'all are watching this, that means that we're going to gain some more people that are going to leave the state, right? And you're going to move here to Georgia. So thank you for joining us. And of course, if you have any questions, make sure you ask those so that we can get those answered. Jarek asked, do you know Gainesville, Georgia? Do I? I live in Gainesville, Georgia. So yeah, so we moved here from South Georgia for my husband's job 8 years ago. Can't believe it's been 8 years. It's the longest place I've ever lived as an adult. We used to move quite a bit for his job, and luckily we don't have to do that anymore. But yeah, Gainesville, fantastic place. I've got tons of videos here on my channel that really dig into Gainesville. You've got Lake Lanier, you've got the mountains in the background. It is a really, really fantastic place, and it's getting even better than when it was when we moved here 8 years ago. There's a lot of great development happening in the downtown area, and we've got a lot of growth in restaurants and stores and things like that coming in addition to what's already been here. So definitely some great changes and additions, but yes, I have lots of great content on my channel here about Gainesville. Yvonne, your family's planning on coming here the summer of 2024. So you've got some time to plan. That is awesome. I hope you'll reach out to us when you get a little bit closer so that we can help you make that move. And thank you for watching tonight. David, you saw a 5,000 square foot house in Forsyth County. Yeah, property tax is only $800 a year. So that means, yes, for sure, that has to be owned by a senior citizen. So likely, I'm assuming that house was probably close to 800,000-ish. So you're probably looking at property taxes of around 6,000 for that property for the year. So we do have the ability to kind of like dig in and give you a more accurate estimate of what those property taxes would be without that senior tax exemption. But for sure, this is probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see online lenders make whenever they qualify a buyer for a mortgage. And this is why I do not like working with big online lenders. And that's because they will tease you with these really great rates, and they'll give you a loan estimate for a property, and they will drastically underestimate the property taxes. I guess if you're coming from out of state, maybe it's not that big of a deal, but I've seen it happen here locally with clients where they'll say, hey, we want to keep our mortgage payment around $1,800 a month or $2,500 a month. And you'll see their loan estimate and you'll see what they're estimating for property taxes, and it's really low. And so, a change in your property taxes, whenever you're escrowing that money every single month, you're paying a portion of your property taxes every single month with your mortgage bill. So, adding $150, $200 onto your mortgage every single month because they got the property taxes wrong on that loan estimate. And then once you get the actual real loan estimate from the lender, and then you're like, hey, what happened to my $2,500 a month payment? Now it's $2,800. That's not what I signed up for. So if you're getting pre-approved with a big national lender and you're asking for kind of like a loan estimate to get like what that breakdown of payment is, make sure they're using accurate numbers for the property taxes. That is super, super important. All right. So diving back into this data, I wanted to show y'all a map. Let's see here. Let me share my screen with you. And this is on the National Association of Realtors website. So if you scroll down here, this is where I took that screenshot of where people are leaving. And you see here at the top, here's all the states that had net population growth. And then here are all the states and areas that had people leave. Obviously, a lot of these are kind of like in the Midwest, North, and then you also have on the West Coast as well. But if you dig down here, there is a map here, and I've already kind of zoomed this in. This is the Metro Atlanta area. Oh, dang it. Okay, let's see here. Let me get back here. All right, this is the Atlanta, Sandy Springs, Marietta, Georgia, Metro Atlanta area. This is how nationally across the country they break out the Atlanta area. And what I thought was interesting about this is that the red indicates people leaving. The blue indicates people moving to. So not only in the Metro Atlanta area did we have people from out of state moving into these blue areas, but you can see in the heart of Atlanta, in the actual city of Atlanta, which is where that red is, that is an indication of people leaving that area. And this is something that I definitely feel and see as a real estate agent. And it's part of the reason why home prices have increased as well in the Metro Atlanta area, in the areas that I serve. And it's because even the people in the city of Atlanta are relocating to the suburbs and also seeking out the same things that the suburbs have to offer in terms of homes and property taxes and convenience of stores and restaurants and shops and great schools and all those things that make us a great place to come live. We also have people in the heart of Atlanta that are also relocating to the suburbs for those exact same reasons. Let's see here. We have Noble Fountain Films and Productions. We moved from Massachusetts and our property taxes went down more than half, and we have 4 times the property. That's really cool. So not only are you paying less in property taxes, but you quadrupled the amount of land that you have. Where did y'all move to? I'm interested to see, and if you're in our area, I'm curious about your business that you have there. Oh, so Brian's working on, yeah, you are working on leaving California. We're excited to help you and your family relocate here and find a great home. We're excited for you to get your home in California in the market, and hopes that's going to go fantastic for you. And we can't wait to welcome you out here and helping you find a home here in Georgia. Scott, do housing prices generally get cheaper than Gainesville as you move more towards the mountains like Blue Ridge and Blairsville? Yes and no. So, yes, you're going to find some more affordable houses, and yet sometimes I'll give you a great example. I just spoke to a client this past week who wanted to move from New York and come down to Georgia. What they wanted was a ranch house on acreage, private location, close to grocery stores and things like that, and they wanted mountain views. That's a lot to ask for in our area. There may be other parts in the country where you can get all of those things, but it's incredibly hard to get all of those things. And it's just like I tell people, if you are looking for a home on Lake Lanier, you're going to have to compromise somewhere. We can't have everything on our wish list. We're going to have to compromise. It's the same thing there. So you can get a decent house in Blue Ridge and Blairsville area. Are you going to get that mountain view there in that price point cheaper than Gainesville? Likely not. That's going to be hard. Or you could, but then you're going to have a home that's going to need a little bit of updates, and you're going to have to put some TLC into it. You have to think that those areas are also really driven by a lot of second home markets. And you also have people that are wanting to buy investment homes there to turn into Airbnb properties. So that is something to keep in mind. There are a lot of metro Atlanta areas, or metro Atlanta areas, or maybe not so metro, outside of Atlanta, outside of this area, where the further north you get, you tend to get more for your money. I just made a video about the top 5 affordable small towns here in the North Georgia area that are still kind of like on the outskirts of Gainesville and Brazelton, where you can get a little bit more house for your money. A really great town right now that I send a lot of people to, or I give them a lot of ideas about, is the town of Monroe, Georgia. So Monroe. And that is an area that's really growing. There's a lot of great new construction there. You can find a house under $400,000 on an acre of land or 2 acres of land, new construction. And that is a really good deal. You can find a lot of new construction homes in the Gainesville area under $400,000, or kind of between $350,000 and $400,000, but you're going to get like a little postage stamp size lot of 0.15 acres or a quarter of an acre. So if you're wanting more land, that might be an area to consider where you're not so far north. But if you're wanting mountains, that can definitely be something that those areas will have you cheaper options or more affordable options for sure. So thank you for asking that great question. So if you have any questions about buying a home, selling a house, anything about the housing market, make sure that you ask that. I'd love to answer it for you. So I talked that taxes were one of the main reasons that we are seeing a lot of people relocate here for, or they find it as a great side benefit of what they get for living in Georgia. Another reason that people move here is because we have a really strong jobs market. We have a lot of big corporate employers that have headquarters here, or that have relocated their headquarters here, or have kind of like secondary headquarters here. Most of those are going to be kind of like closer into the metro Atlanta area, but the side benefits from those types of employers being here are phenomenal. Up 85 corridor, there's been a lot of manufacturing businesses that have relocated here. So you have SK Battery Plant in the Commerce Winder area that has been a huge employer. We have Amazon that is up that corridor as well. That's a huge local employer. And then you have Rivian, the truck factory, is up that 85 corridor as well. So on the east side, northeast side of Atlanta, that is really what's kind of driving a lot of development in these smaller towns as you go a little bit further north. So that's going to be Brazelton and Jefferson and Winder and Commerce, towns that are up that 85 route. And then, of course, you have Cumming and Alpharetta and Dawsonville. Those are all kind of being driven by those kind of corporate headquarters that you'll see. Another big driving factor for a lot of people that are relocating here to our area is housing. And so we had the comment earlier that you were thinking about coming for a job, but the housing was more expensive than where you're currently at. And usually for a lot of people that are coming here, it's the opposite reason. So like my friend Brian that is watching right now, they're selling their house in California, 1,500, 1,800 square foot house there. And the equivalent price point here in Georgia, you're looking at well over 4,000 or 5,000 square feet home with a huge yard. And you are just getting so much more for your money here for a lot of people, depending upon where you're coming from. Now, it's not always the case, but you will typically find way more affordable homes, or at least a lot more for your money than what you're used to getting here in Georgia. Let's see, we have another comment here. Looking at North Georgia area, we'll be commuting into Atlanta 3 to 4 days a week. How bad is the traffic? So that's a good question, and it's really relative. So sometimes we get clients that will come and visit and they'll drive through Atlanta and they'll experience that traffic and they're like, what traffic? That wasn't bad. That's nothing from like where I'm coming from. Or they'll drive around town and they'll feel that traffic, and to them, it's not traffic at all. I will say, if you have to drive into the Atlanta area, it can vary. So I'll give you a good example. My husband, we live in Gainesville. He has to travel down into the Decatur area a couple times a week. And some days that drive is 45 minutes. And some days that drive is an hour and a half, depending upon if there's a car accident or something silly. We had a plane land on 85 the other day. So it's kind of like crazy Atlanta traffic. You just never know what to expect. And he's driving from Gainesville to Decatur. He's not even going all the way down into Atlanta. So I will say, I would strongly encourage you that if you have to travel down into Atlanta, let's say we live in Gainesville, if we were to move down to Swanee, which is only 30 minutes, but if you had to start your commute in Swanee to drive down into Atlanta or the Decatur area, you're looking at likely you're shaving off a good 20 to 30 minutes plus for most of the time. So if you have flexibility of living a little bit further down, closer into the metro Atlanta area, I would strongly encourage it, because it's going to save you so much time a lot of the times because of the traffic. Sometimes though, your price point of the home that you can afford won't necessarily allow you, or maybe you'll have way more options if you go a little bit further north. So then you're kind of trading off that, okay, some days I might be in traffic for an hour and some days that might be an hour and a half, and I'm just going to have to roll with it and find some great podcasts to listen to and subscribe to, because that will be your savior. Robert chimed in and said, Atlanta traffic is worse than LA. So that is a good point of view. And of course, everything's relative, so you'll get a chance to see that. If you have not visited here, I strongly encourage all of my clients that are thinking about relocating to come do a visit. Spend a couple of days out here, get to know the area, get to know what you like and don't like. I can't tell you how many people we've had thinking that they want to come and move to one area. And then once they come for that exploratory trip, they either rule it out or they find another area that they just love so much more. And now like that is the area. So definitely something that you can do, kind of like some test drives while you're here into the area that you're going to be working, so that you can test out that commute. Google's amazing now, right? So we've got Google Maps. And so you can be one part of the country and Google map it. Like when you would typically be commuting, I would do it during that time frame so that you can see what the actual real-time drive is. Scott said that look for a cheap house and use the money you save for a helicopter. Oh, that's funny. Okay. We do have something here called the Peach Pass lane. So you can save a little bit of time by getting a pass that goes on the side of your car, and you get to go into a special lane and drive into Atlanta a little bit faster. We also have HOV lanes, so that if you have more than one person in the car, so at least two people, there's also another lane that you can get in as you get closer to Atlanta that's just reserved for people that have two or more people in their cars, and that usually those lanes are a lot faster as well. What is the best city for access to the aquarium and to schools in Sandy Springs? That is a good question. So you're going to find a lot of good options in Roswell and Alpharetta and the Marietta area that are going to, put you within a 30-ish minute drive of the aquarium and give you those options for Sandy Springs. You can also find, I would say that that's probably the best area to kind of concentrate and look in. One thing that's kind of a toss-up is that as you get closer to the city of Atlanta, the schools are a little bit iffy. You can check out those ratings yourself. And then, of course, if you're thinking about raising a family, which a lot of people, if you're driven by schools, you want to kind of be in that neighborhood, family-friendly type feeling of an area. And so you're going to get more of that a little bit more in the suburbs. Robert said, if it doesn't change my mind, I'm coming to North Georgia. Oh, it doesn't change my mind. What doesn't change your mind? The traffic? Hopefully, if you're coming to the North Georgia area, you're not going to experience very many traffic. Occasionally, I have to drive down into the city of Atlanta. We have real estate events and things like that bring me down there. And so you just have to know to budget and plan for some extra time in the car or unknown time in the car if you're going into the Atlanta area. But for the everyday today, you're not having to deal with traffic. How is the city of Dalton? So the city of Dalton is really kind of up in the northern part of Georgia, almost in Tennessee. It's a pretty small town. So it's something that, I say do some more research on. There's not a whole lot there. I say that as someone, obviously I don't live there. I don't sell real estate there. I do have a really great real estate partner that I can connect you with in that area if that's something that you're considering buying in or relocating to. For sure, you want to get someone that has super great knowledge about that area. In my experience, it's a really small town, and I'm someone that grew up in small town Georgia. So for me, having that experience or kind of comparing that to the metro area or the Gainesville, Beaufort, Flowery Branch, Cumming, Alpharetta area, it's going to be drastically smaller than probably what you're used to. But the pro of that is that you're getting more affordable housing there, but then also you're not going to have as strong of a job market either in that area as well. Dalton used to be the carpet capital of the world, I believe. So there's a lot of old carpet factories. And so we don't buy as much carpet anymore in the United States as what we used to. Also, a lot of that is now manufactured overseas. So that industry that kind of built that town has really died down. And so that town is kind of, probably if you look back historically, I don't have the facts immediately to back this up, but I bet you would see that they've had a population decline of people moving away from the area, jobs moving away from there because that manufacturing arm has really died in that area. Really good questions, and I love answering those for y'all. So if you are thinking about buying, moving, have questions about a specific area, want to know pros or cons or something like that, definitely let me know. I appreciate you spending some time and interacting with me here. And just to wrap this up, I talked at the beginning of the live stream about the weather that we're having here, but that's also another big reason of why we see people relocate to the area. It's our weather. And so specifically here in the North Georgia metro Atlanta area, we have 4 seasons. And as someone that grew up in South Georgia, I can tell you down there's 2 seasons. There's hot and not so hot. And if you're from Florida, I bet you experience hot all the time or milder of a hot, right? So one of the things that I appreciate about this is that you can wear a full wardrobe of clothes all throughout the year. So in the winter, you can wear sweaters and boots and coats. Now, I'm sure if you're a man watching this, you probably do not care about that at all. But for me, someone growing up in South Georgia, you would get these cute sweaters and stuff like that for Christmas, but you would put them on and wear them and you're sweating to death an hour later. Or you could wear it 1 or 2 days out of the year without being uncomfortable. So you get 4 seasons, but our winter, relatively mild. You got a great spring and fall season. And then although our our summers can get kind of warm. It gets hot here, right? So it does get hot. But I can tell you the difference between our hot here versus a hot in South Georgia or Florida is completely different. Yes, we still have humidity, but it's nothing like the humidity down in South Georgia or Florida. Also, one of the things that I've appreciated about being here is that we have really nice breeze. You always have like some sort of wind, and that is also unheard of in South Georgia or Florida unless you're on the beach. Then you can get that wind, but it is just like a stagnant, humid, hot air down there. Whereas here up in North Georgia, even if it's a really hot day, you're getting that breeze every now and then that's cooling you off. So that's definitely something to look forward to. And last but not least, this is not the reason why people move to Georgia, but this is a benefit that I hear from almost all of my clients. Whenever we go through this process of buying a home together, y'all are not getting rid of me after you buy a house. You're stuck with me. We are now friends, and I want to be your realtor and resource for the entire time that you are here. But whenever I follow up and I have these conversations with clients after they're moved in and settled, I always hear from clients about how nice and how friendly people are here, from the wait staff at restaurants to just people in the grocery store. If you go back to some of my videos, I talk about how people in the grocery store will just kind of like give you the friendly head nod, as you're going down the aisle with your grocery cart, or they'll say hello or they'll smile at you. That's completely normal. And it happens, all the time. I had lunch with a client yesterday. They've been here now for 2 years. They relocated from South Florida. And they said one of the amazing things that they love about living here is that how friendly their neighbors are. And so they had, like neighbors bring them over cookies and welcome them to the neighborhood. And their sister also moved, and they live in a separate part of the neighborhood, but they have a younger daughter, and how the kids just came over and introduced themselves and, asked to play with the daughter, and that they, now she has like a really great friend group in the neighborhood. And that is a very typical Georgian thing, and something that you are going to experience when you're here. You're going to get to know your neighbors. You're going to say hello to them in the driveway, and they're going to know you. I asked them if there was anything that they regretted or missed about being in Florida, and they said no, nothing. They did not regret anything. So that always makes me happy whenever people say how friendly people are here in Georgia. Although I can't be a representative of everyone here in Georgia, it gives me a little bit of Georgia pride every time I hear people talk about that. So I'm curious, if you've been to Georgia, do you feel like the people are more friendly than where you currently are? Let me know in the comments. So Hayden asked, is there a good community to look at in Lake Lanier? Maybe not on the lake, but still have a boat slip you could walk to. Yes, we have. There's not a ton of them. So that's something that we wish there were more, but there have been two recent new construction developments here on Lake Lanier with a boat slip marina type situation where you can get the traditional feel of a neighborhood, and you can have a boat slip where you can drive your golf cart or you can drive your car down to kind of like the boat dock area of the neighborhood and then get on your boat. The community of Marina Bay, you've got Harbor Point in Gainesville. That's a big community that has 2 huge marinas. So there's lots of good options, and I strongly encourage you to reach out to me. My contact information is below this video, and I'd love to set you up on a search and kind of dig in a little bit more, but there's many different communities, and it really depends on your price point and what you're looking at. But that is a great option of being on the lake without being on the lake. And so without having like the lake directly in your backyard. Another thing that people are surprised about too is that the renting a boat slip at a marina is not that expensive. So it's just a couple $100 a quarter. And they kind of go up depending upon the boat slip that you're renting. But there's a lot of great neighborhoods that are really close to these marinas as well. So you could be a 5-minute drive in your car from your neighborhood down to the marina. And that could be some also a good options as well. Robert is looking into the Brazelton area. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. There's lots of good houses there, lots of great new construction, development. There's everything going on in Brazelton, and it has grown a ton since I've moved here. That's definitely been a huge up and coming area. King's daughter, they visited Beaufort over the summer and you loved it. Stayed for about a week. As soon as I can get my money together, that's where we were moving. Yeah, Beaufort City Schools, that's a huge driver. So Beaufort City Schools are one of the top rated school systems in the state of Georgia. Number one, number two, they kind of go back and forth. Great little town, but also, like I say, little town. The city limits itself is pretty small, but then you've got a lot of good options, or the city around it is also pretty big. So you've got the Mall of Georgia, you've got a Topgolf there, every restaurant that you could want, every chain store that you could want, and you still have like the cute, charming downtown Beaufort area. Some of my favorite restaurants are there. Fantastic Thai restaurant is in downtown Beaufort, and also there's a restaurant called Rico's World Kitchen. You have to go there if you're ever in Beaufort. They've got homemade specials every single day, but it's got like Latin flair and American food, and it's just a really special place to be. So, but yes, Beaufort is really great. So, did anyone think that when they came here to Beaufort, not Beaufort, but Georgia in general, were people friendly? I would love to know your comments and thoughts on that. Well, I greatly appreciate everyone's time tonight. And if you don't have any questions, we are definitely going to sign off. I've enjoyed our time together this week. And of course, I will be back on the live stream next week with you, answering your questions and digging into exactly what has happened in the real estate market over the past week, and answering all of your questions about moving here to Georgia. King's daughter said, yes, very friendly. So thank you for the affirmation that we are friendly. And of course, if you are thinking about making a move here to Georgia, you can find my contact information below this video. Typically what we do is we get on either a Zoom or a phone call. We learn more about exactly what you're looking for, answer all your questions, and kind of help you narrow down the perfect area for you, learn more about your budget, time frame, all that kind of good stuff, and really put together a good strategy to help you get to Georgia or wherever you want to be. So you can find my contact information below the video. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next week. And of course, we have a new video that drops every single Sunday right here on my channel. So if you haven't liked and subscribed, make sure you go ahead and do that, and I will see you next week.